Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. We are going to give everyone just a few minutes to come into the room here. While we are doing that, um, thank you. I want to shout out to all of my patrons, everyone that supports my content. If you are not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and hit that subscription button along with the thumbs up button. This podcast is now available also on Spotify. So make sure you check that out. As soon as we air this, it goes right on up to the Spotify. Also, if you would like to purchase any merch, go over to RhondaMary.com. Also, if you would like to get on my mailing list so we can stay in contact no matter what happens, because you got YouTube and Instagram that be hating on your girl, also go over there to RhondaMary.com so we can stay in contact. Okay. Hey, Derek. Hey, Pilu. Hey, Jupiter, who haven't been here in forever. All right, so hey to everybody coming in the room. And tonight we have my girl with us, Sharice, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you guys like where you can find her social media, a little bit about her and all that stuff.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharice. I'm a YouTube host, political commentator, also an ambassador. I basically discuss politics from a pro-black conservative stance, and that's basically me. You can find me on YouTube at Sharice Lane, Instagram Sharice Lane, Twitter Sharice J Lane, and TikTok Sharice Lane. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I apologize, still having some internet issues here. I think we should be okay, but just not as crisp as I would like. Sharice told me I need to stop using my internet and my camera. I need to start using my phone.
Use your phone for the lives. Yes.
Huh?
I said use your phone for the lives.
Yeah, so I may have to do that, but
it looks good right now though.
Okay. All right. So y'all let me know in the chat. Right now we on the Wi-Fi, but if anything else, if it gets worse or anything, we'll try to switch it over to hotspot or I don't know. So if any of the techie people are in the chat, please send me an email, help your girl out at RhondaMaryVideos@gmail.com. Okay. All right, y'all. So as you probably already saw, especially if you are on Twitter, the world is on fire. Okay, not the world. That sounds a little, I don't know, like I don't want to say like narcissistic, but people already be like, y'all Americans think y'all. So I'll just say, okay,
America. Just say America.
There's a firestorm in America today, okay? People are up in arms as a document was recently leaked from the Supreme Court where it is possible that there may be an overturning of Roe versus Wade soon. And this was a leak, which I find to be very odd and interesting timing, considering everything else that's going on, considering the midterms and everything that's coming up. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that as well. But yeah, so now you already have protesters taken to the streets and things like this. And so just to get everyone caught up real quick, so we're on the right, we're all on the same page, we're going to take a look at this article over here on NBC News. Supreme Court live updates: decision to overturn Roe v. Wade leaked. A draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito was published Monday by Politico, indicating that the Supreme Court would overturn Roe versus Wade. The Supreme Court is set to overturn Roe versus Wade, according to a leaked draft opinion published Monday by Politico. The court confirmed in a statement Tuesday that the draft was authentic, because some people did have their concerns, okay, thinking this was just a little odd and, It's not every day that you have a leaked document coming from the Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts called the leak an egregious breach of the court's trust, but the court stressed that the draft did not represent the final opinion of any member or the full court. The stunning news prompted immediate responses. President Joe Biden. President Joe Biden. Joe Biden will probably do a little bit better than how Joe Biden.
No.
You can never be too sure at this point, okay? But President Joe Biden issued a statement Tuesday saying that a woman's right to choose is fundamental and that his administration will be ready when any ruling is issued. Protests continued outside the Supreme Court on Tuesday, and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were quick to applaud or denounce the apparent decision. So, for a second, I thought everybody was chilling. We was kind of more back to our own lives, kind of getting away from the mask, more so focused on trying to keep this food on the table and paying these gas prices. And now it looks like people are about to be back in the streets protesting. So, Sharice, what do you think, girl?
At first, I thought it was fake. That's why when I posted about it, I said, hopefully this is true, because you don't hear stuff like this happening, especially not overturning of Roe v. Wade in this country. So it's very interesting, especially the timing that the leak has been brought out and happened, because you know that midterms are coming up, and this could be to sway the vote of a lot of people to vote more left than center or right. So very interesting. I really do hope that this is legit, because I'm against abortion, and I really believe that abortion has affected the Black community, the community that I come from and that I care about. It has affected us the most. So that's basically my thoughts on it. And pretty much over the protests already. Don't really have time for it. People do have a right to freedom of speech and right to protest, but it's getting old at this point.
I definitely think I think you made a really good point about an interesting timing, right? All of these articles have been coming out, particularly as it relates to Black voters. Oh, it's over for the Dems at midterm because Black voters felt like they showed up to the booth and you haven't, basically haven't kept any of your promises, and people are not going to keep going out here to the polls. And, they're not seeing any benefit from their vote. And then you remove the mask mandates, right? So you have a lot of people kind of going back to their regular everyday lives, moving on with their lives, realizing that COVID is in fact, or at least from what they're telling us, endemic, and it's something that we're just going to have to live with. And not only that, you have a lot of people that are not so happy that gas prices are high, okay?
Right.
Homes are high. Food is high. Like
inflation.
Everything is too high. And a lot of people are not feeling it. A lot of people are not happy about it. And so they are absolutely suspecting, that to show up at the polls. And now all of a sudden this leak drops, okay? Which is not something that happens. And we know that abortion is one of those issues in this country that is going to bring out the worst in people, okay? You're going to have a split country. You're going to have a divide. And it's definitely a way. It's definitely a way to get people to the polls for sure. I mean, that's just what's happening. It's a motivating factor. And for some people, you could take everything else off the table. They don't give a crap. They want a right to their abortions.
And I just think it's confusing because they say my body, my choice, or a woman's right to bodily autonomy, but it's not. It's literally another human being growing inside of you. I still don't understand the argument to this day because it's not logical, but people are going to think how they want to think. They're pretty brainwashed, actually. That's what I believe. They're brainwashed and listen to a lot of their celebrity idols and politicians who they idolize. that say my body, my choice when it's not your body at all.
So let's talk about that, because that was mentioned in these documents, right? And I think that this is where the breakdown happens. A lot of people are not agreeing when this fetus, okay, becomes a person, when this fetus becomes a child, a baby. I think that's where, and it's even these suspicions of, oh, they're gonna, in some of these states, particularly the red states, they're gonna completely wipe out abortion, they're gonna completely make it illegal. I don't particularly believe that to be true, honestly. In a lot of the states, I think you would still have I think it's like 8 weeks or 12 weeks or something like that. Let me know if I'm wrong. I don't know, but I know some of the states, like you had, I believe, Mississippi, Tennessee, and I think it was Texas, trying to make it like somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks.
I know that if Roe v. Wade gets overturned, it will only be on like the federal level, so you still have those states' rights. So I think, honestly, it'll be a win-lose for both sides because Roe v. Wade won't be completely overturned. Like it won't, abortion won't be completely illegal because each state is going to still have their laws concerning it. But
So
on the federal level,
So this is a really good point. Okay. So let me read this a little bit, and then we're gonna come back to this point, because I want to talk about that. So so this was Politico, where you have the documents that leaked, right? And let's read some of the important parts. And this is 98 pages. I did not get a chance to read all of this as of yet, but this is very, very informative. So let's read some of the highlighted parts. This first part: at the time of Roe, 30 states still prohibited abortion at all stages. In the years prior to that decision, about a third of the states had liberalized their laws, but Roe abruptly ended their political process. It imposed the same highly restrictive regime on the entire nation, and it effectively struck down the abortion laws of every single state, as Justice Brian White aptly put in his dissent, the decision. So we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision, including the one on which the defenders of Roe and Casey now chiefly rely, the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. That provision has been able to guarantee some rights that are not mentioned in the Constitution, but any such right must be deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition and implicit in the concept of ordered liberty. Roe's abuse of judicial authority. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. His reasoning was exceptionally weak, and the decision has had damaging consequences. And far from bringing about a national settlement of the abortion issue, Roe and Casey have inflamed debate and deepened division. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. The permissibility of abortion and the limitations upon it are to be revolved, like most important questions in our democracy, by citizens trying to persuade one another and then voting. This is what the Constitution and the rule of law demands. So this comes back to the point where you just made, okay? You have a lot of these people freaking out, thinking that, if this is in fact overturned, that you're going to have abortion absolutely outlawed, right?
and it's not the case.
Which is just not the case. In fact, what it's doing, based on these leaked documents, is saying, we do not think that this is something that the higher branches of government, the federal branches of government should deal with. And we think that because this is such a divisive issue, we should allow these things to happen in a local manner, allow people to have local discussions, and then vote directly for their local representatives and handle those issues like that. So the people kind of freaking out, maybe not characterizing it in the most forthcoming way. We absolutely know places like California, New York, and some of these other places, I mean, it wouldn't really matter. It wouldn't really matter that much.
It wouldn't. It's just bringing back to states' rights, basically. So and I think a lot of these people, they don't read, and they don't really understand government, and that's why they're out there protesting, because it's not the end of the world if Roe v. Wade gets overturned. It's just gonna go, the power just gonna go back to the states. Exactly what the bill, or exactly what that was saying.
So what I think is so interesting, I think it's an interesting juxtaposition here, because the Fourth Amendment, right? If you look at the Fourth Amendment basically expanded protections of rights for citizens at the state level, right? So that's basically what it was for. But more importantly, it happened around 1868 after the Reconstruction era, and it was specifically for formerly enslaved people who may have been subjected to these laws. So basically, equal protection to be treated equally under the law. Now, why I find it so interesting is because when does a law actually apply to a person? This comes back to, when are we saying that this child is actually a child and deserves some type of rights? And where it gets really, really crazy and almost, I would characterize it as barbaric, is that you have some people absolutely willing to push the limit. You have some people who are they are morally okay with up until 8 and 9 months ending this pregnancy.
It's a mental illness. You have to be absolutely out your mind to want to end your child's life at that stage. Honestly, I would say out of the mind at a month. Like, come on. I believe that life starts at conception. I am, I don't know, maybe like an extreme pro-lifer, because even when it comes to, this might seem unpopular, but even when it comes to rape, which a lot of people bring up, I don't believe that you should abort your child when it comes to rape, because I believe that the child is as much as a victim as the mother, and that the child shouldn't die for the sins of its father. We're not gonna get into that, but yes, these people are bogus. These people are insane, and they need to go to counseling, therapy. People are disregarding that and thinking that their thought process is correct when it's not. You're out of your mind.
I think that the thought of rape, I would say, based on modern day standards, I would say that it's a more extreme take. It's not something that I've really sat and thought about. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know I don't know how it feels to deal with that emotion of going through that type of trauma. You know what I mean? And so that's not something that I've given a lot of thought to. What I have given a lot of thought to is that the number of people that receive abortions that have been raped are nearly, I mean,
it's not a lot.
It's very small numbers. I think, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think it's less than 3%, right?
Yep. It's around 1%.
And when we're looking at the totality of abortion, it's just not a huge representation of the numbers. And not only that, right, when we're talking about those more long-term abortions, you mentioned a baby being a victim. One thing I would say about me is that, you know, I'm not as extreme as you, Sharice. I think that I'm more what people would say is middle ground, moderate, centrist. When I take all of these kind of things into consideration. And one thing I know about me, and I've shared this on my channel before, is that it's very easy to get wrapped up and just say stuff and just repeat stuff and just tweet stuff and just hashtag stuff and just buy a t-shirt and just say what you see everybody else saying without ever really knowing the ins and the outs of what goes on with these procedures, who it affects more, the statistics of it, the money of it, where the body parts are going, and all these other things. And I used to be one of those people that would just, it's like a programming. It's so much stuff that is just drilled into us that we don't even really give it thought. Like even that you just brought up, well, I'm more because I haven't really had this conversation with anybody that's like, well, I'm more on the extreme side of whatever.
It's what people would consider extreme, but for me, I've thought about it. I've thought about in that scenario because I'm not gonna get into it, but I've been through stuff like that, so I know the type of emotions that go through, at least for me, that goes through a woman's head when something like that happens to her. Everyone can't say that, but right. I know. So, but I've thought about, okay, what if a child would have came out of that? I wouldn't have aborted the child because, like I said, the child is a victim as well. But that's a whole nother conversation. A whole nother conversation for another day. The point is, a lot of people, they don't have a mind of their own these days and just following what the crowd says. It's not your body, so mind your business. That's what people say to me all the time. You need to mind your business. The baby, the thing growing inside of your stomach, the fetus growing inside of your stomach is a whole nother human being. That is not your body, literally. Like, I don't know why people don't understand this. If something is growing inside of you, that's another entity. A whole nother entity. Like, I don't get it. What's disconnecting? Because I don't understand people's thought process.
So I'm going to explain the thought process to you a little bit because this is my thought on the issue. My problem with it is that I do agree that there is a different entity, right? However, anytime we create a law or regulation, I don't care whether it's dealing with drugs, whether it's dealing with murder, whether it's dealing with whatever the case may be, right? You have people that are going to ultimately do some things that we find absolutely egregious. That's just what's going to happen. You have some people that absolutely do not care about the consequences. For me, my problem with the situation is that, yes, this child is growing inside of her, but when we create these certain laws and regulations, we are outsourcing basically violence through the state that says that if this person doesn't submit to my will, I can escalate violence up into death. That's ultimately, we can try to make it cute, we can try to make it fancy, we can try to, hide what it really is, but that's the truth. Anytime that you are breaking a law, there is potential for law enforcers to get involved. And my problem with that is that I have a problem with force, even though that child is inside of her, I have a problem of the extension of force, possibly, right, upon mothers, because now it's like it's kind of like for your safety, right? Like, if you don't wear a mask, I'll kill you or be violent towards you for not doing something that I think is for your safety, right? So
So you're basically saying like it's too much government, right?
I
Like
think
too much. The government has too much of a hand in the situation.
I think it's too much government. And partly why I do agree with this is because I don't necessarily think the federal government should play this big of a role. I do think it is localized. I think that ultimately you're going to have people in Mississippi that feel differently about this issue than people in California, right? And it's a continuum of violence that just bothers me. And yes, I do think that, especially at a certain point, the child is a victim and it is a level of violence upon a child. Like, I have to, even thinking about it makes me sick. And I wouldn't have felt like this several years ago because I had no idea about the actual procedure. I didn't know.
It's dangerous. And a lot of women don't talk about it.
It's dangerous. People don't talk about it. I personally know women that have PTSD from the procedures that nobody talked to them about, nobody mentioned. It's not cool or pretty to talk about. You have so many women dealing with issues internally. I think it's a heart issue. I think it's a moral issue. I think we need to talk more. We need to have these conversations. And this is what it basically says this in the leaked documents. Like, this is such a divisive issue that we have to talk more. And there are things that have to be done at the local level that, even with the whole Christianity standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the whole concept of letting your light shine, right? Like, even in a lot of ways with like the wrath and the stuff that you have in a Bible, right? I think you could characterize as Jesus being this, like, look, you got to make your decision. You know what I mean? You may have to deal with some of these consequences in the afterlife, but I mean, what are you going to do? So I still, I want to say it's a concept that I'm still like struggling with, but I can think something is morally wrong. I can completely think something is morally wrong. I can speak out about it as being morally wrong, but does that mean that I want to press violence upon you, extend my authority on you? I think that's a different conversation.
Right. And let me say this. Going back to the point of the PTSD that women go through, a lot of these women, I'm just gonna say, when it comes to like Black women, a lot of people say that, we need to give women, especially like Black women, access to abortions, and if you don't give them access to it, like, they basically won't have any access, because a lot of they paint a lot of Black women as in poverty, but a lot of these women, they're not having access to therapy either, and it's really sad. Like, you encourage them to get an abortion, but the psychological effects that comes with it, you don't think about. And then they're not only suffering from the loss of their child, but also how their body is reacting to it, because it's not natural to kill the baby that's inside of you, pull the limbs out, or through chemically. That's not natural. So they're not only dealing with that, but they're dealing with the psychological issues. And same abortion clinics that's performing these abortions are not really offering any therapy or solutions concerning psychologically. And it's sad, because I feel like they just don't care. They just care about getting rid of the baby, and that's it.
The procedure of abortion that includes like the surgery where you are essentially, what gets me is, and I will have to kind of refresh my memory on this, but at some point this child fetus is, it starts developing into body parts, and at a certain point during the abortion procedure, it is a very much so them going in there and getting the legs,
Yeah.
getting the head, getting the arms, and taking those things out of the mother, putting them on the table, and having to even account for those things as the doctor and sign off on it, saying we retrieved all of these body parts, because that's literally what they are. And I, for the longest time, did not even know that. I guess I never really thought about it. And it just shows, I'm talking about me, like me. It shows how shallow some of our own levels of perception, understanding, or even thought process can be. Because the only thought I had about it were the hashtags I was being told, and then the moment I started looking into the procedure, the moment I started looking into the historical aspect, right? Particularly getting rid of Black children or children with disabilities. I mean, literally eugenics. The moment I started looking into how human trafficking is very much a thing, and how even with the Henrietta Lacks story, right? Like all these pro-Black people will talk about, oh, well, she didn't get paid for her, her sales. She didn't get paid for this sales research. But you literally have Black women, like, you just going there and you just leaving the body, you're not even taking it with you, having any type of like,
What
burial.
happened to the placenta too?
Oh, they steal the placentas, honey. I've been talking about this more too, because even how we are treated, I mean, all around this system as it relates to medically, it's just disgusting. They trick us into stealing our placentas, and those placentas have so many like nutrients
and fibers
and just all types of things. And who knows what type of research, and they've had women like,
can't you cure people? You can cure people with placenta.
yeah.
Like you can literally cure. You can get cured with placenta certain diseases.
Yes, absolutely. So it's not even just as it relates to abortion. Many of these medical procedures have absolutely taken advantage of us, taken advantage of our lack of knowledge. I talk about this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This young lady that I follow on Instagram, her name is Sacred Birth Doula.
Yeah, we were talking about her in the room on Twitter.
She's so informational, and I love these segments of, particularly but not limited to, but particularly these Black influencers, educators that are waking people up and giving you the information that, whether you want to say we don't have access to it, we don't know it, we're willfully ignorant, we're whatever. It could be a list of those things. It could be a combination of those things wrapped in one. People like her, and I'm shouting her out, because if you're not following her, I think you should. But the informational component, the educational component of, these are your rights and you are not being told this, and they are manipulating you. They're manipulating you for their benefit, to make more money, to get bigger insurance payouts. I mean, to sell your stem cells, right? It was a story that came out a couple of this was probably 2 years ago. People barely talked about it, but you had this one abortionist who was like stealing body parts and like harvesting them at his home, at his residence. Yes, he was like keeping them, like for what reason, I don't know. But when you know, when we see movies like Get Out, okay, we know
Makes
what's
sense.
happening. We know what's happening out here. When we
Makes
see
sense.
so many women and children going missing, being sold as sex slaves, bodies coming up missing, children being wrapped up in mats with their organs missing. Like, let's just call it what it is, man. Let's just call it what it is. And I'm pro information. I'm always going to be that before legislation because I don't like outsourcing everything to the federal government. That's just my overall position. But this is a heart issue. This is a lack of information issue. And
lack of critical thinking. Like, it's not even, I would say it's not even a lot of people's fault that they're not thinking how they're supposed to. They're not reaching out and trying to find information instead of just listening to what's being fed to them. It's not their fault because they weren't taught to critically think. For me, the school that I went to a private school, and I learned stuff outside of the school. That's one of the reasons why I am the way that I am today, because I was taught to critically think and to think for myself, to be a free thinker, to not follow the crowd. As a matter of fact, I've never followed the crowd. I've never fit in, so it really just comes easy to me. But I would say it's not people's fault. People go, at least people like in my generation, or I don't know. Are you how? I would say, how old are you? Are you like a millennial or are you a Gen Z?
millennial.
Millennial. Okay, so my generation and your generation, we just weren't taught to critically think, and I think it's just really sad at this point.
Another thing I don't want people to think is that they cannot be influential because that is the furthest thing from the truth. You don't know who you are reaching. Angela Stanton King, who is somebody that is like, this is her thing, this is her wheelhouse. She often talks about how I think I don't want to misquote, but I think it's maybe on up to like 50 children that she is responsible for saving. I mean, that's just what it is. Influencing those mothers, helping them get the resources that they need. And I just don't, ultimately, I know some people are rejoicing, even though I think that this needs to happen and it needs to be localized. I don't particularly think that this is the right moment. Maybe it is. Maybe what's happening needs to happen because there's going to continue to be a bigger and bigger divide. You're going to have people that are going to continue to go more polar opposites and more extreme. I don't really know how healthy that is overall for the country and for people. I think that you have some voices that are becoming so polarized that it is causing violence. It is causing people to lose their minds. It is causing people to, if you have an opinion that doesn't align with them, people are so ready
They
to.
telling you to kill yourself in your DM. Exhibit A, the situation that I'm not going to talk about that I just went through like last week. People in my DM saying you need to go kill yourself, go jump off a bridge.
Yeah,
Y'all
girl.
need to calm down. Y'all need to calm down. Go get some help. Go to a mental institution, because what human being would tell another human being they need to commit suicide?
Girl, you said something about Lizzo, and you know
And
how
you're not going to get into that because that's not what this is about. But
people are
people are
like
crazy, okay?
cheap plug. Entertainers are not leaders. Grab your tea over there at RhondaMary.com, because if y'all wasn't, you know what I'm saying, all up under these people like that, you wouldn't even be feeling any type of way for real, for real. But like she said, we're not gonna get into that. But yeah, you was at the Solutionary Summit. You got your basic gun safety training, making sure you need to make sure that you are out here prepared to defend yourself. And at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's crazy because how the Overton window has really like moved. You know what I mean? In no sense of the word would I have been considered extreme even 5 years ago. Okay. And even you and I, we differ on some of these positions a little bit. But the Overton window has moved so much, and it's to the point where people can't even handle it. People can't even handle it if you differ from them even a little bit.
Yeah, like
And
they're gonna have a heart attack. Like it's the end of the world.
And we must be safe. We must take our personal safety very seriously, especially if you're going to speak out about these issues. I've gotten to the point where I share very little about my personal life and just really anything much that I have going on outside of this, because people are in fact absolutely ridiculous and crazy. And it's sad to share your belief, right? To share your moral system, your belief, have an opinion that sways outside of the mainstream opinion, can potentially be dangerous. It can potentially be dangerous. And it's really, really sad. And stay strapped.
Stay strapped.
Stay strapped. And one thing about me is I don't give a crap who you are. Like we could be very much opposing on any political issue, and you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to arm and defend yourself against violence, okay? But you actually need to know what violence is. You can't be one of these crazy, what they be saying, silence is violence. Like, I'm not talking about that. Like, don't get it twisted, okay? Because
They could just saying anything at this point.
Like, seriously. But we should know what the ruling is by the end of June. This is going to be, I mean,
it's about to get crazy.
This is what the people want. Give them what they want. Like, let's be real. People live for this. People love this. People love the drama. We ain't protested about nothing in a while. People ain't talked about kids in cages in a while. The mask mandates was behind us.
They want this drama. They want it. They want to protest about something. They want to complain about something.
It's perfect going into midterms.
Yeah.
It's gonna get people riled up. You're gonna see some people that had checked out now check back in. And so yeah, I see the states further and further drifting away. Even as it relates to now, you have about 25 states that are constitutional carry. And you have Joe Biden kind of saying stuff here and there about guns. Recently tried to come out with the ghost gun, looking at the ghost guns and things like that, and possibly saying, oh, we need to serialize these parts or this and the other. But you don't have a lot of people other than the gun people really mentioning what's going on with these 25 constitutional carry states. Like, that's a big deal, right?
Right.
So we kind of see this.
I mean, he Joe Biden, God bless his soul. I'm done at this point. He need to go eat some ice cream and get into a nursing home at this point, because I don't know what else to say when it comes to him.
So let's talk about
elder abuse.
Let me tell you, I remember this look that my grandma would have when she was dealing with dementia. It's this thing in the eyes that it's like they're not there.
They're not there. Like, they look soulless.
And anybody trying to pretend like they can't see that, I mean,
didn't he wave at somebody that wasn't there?
He was shaking their hand.
It's giving mentally not there. Nobody is there.
I mean,
or no, he went to shake their hand. Like, nobody is there.
let's talk about this lady that had Twitter in a frenzy today. So Amanda uh Duarte, I guess that's how you say that.
Who even is she?
I read up on her earlier, and she's she's a writer or something. Let me see.
She's dumb. That's what she
I think
is.
she does does she do screenplays? Or yeah, she's an actress and a director, writer
And
and
racist.
performer.
And
Hey.
racist.
So her tweet says, I'm going to read this to you guys, and you can absolutely just type in her name. I don't have it pulled up to show y'all right now, but just type in her name. You will absolutely find it. It says, I do wonder how these white supremacist lawmakers would feel if their little white daughters were raped and impregnated by Black men. Well, she has since not only deleted the tweet, but she has in fact disabled her Twitter account.
It's able again. It's she brought it back and she apologized and said what I
Really?
said was extremely racist. You knew it was racist, chick. Nobody had to tell you that. You knew what you were tweeting. Are you dumb? You are a white woman, living in America. You should know what to say, when not to say concerning Black people. You're not dumb. Well, she's dumb now, but come on.
No,
If you're a writer, like, come on,
I don't
man.
agree. No, I don't agree with that. I think that a lot of people absolutely think like this, and I think that sometimes they very much so say it, and sometimes they don't. And I just tweeted maybe about 2 weeks ago. A guy said something. I had to find a tweet, and I said, "Here you go. This is your typical white American liberal, where they don't particularly care about Black people. You know, don't really see you as a certain level of human, or see a
They
certain.
don't see us as human at all. They see us as their pets.
It's a very parental, very political puns is what I believe Malcolm X called it, right? It's like, oh, I want to fight with the other white person, so let me sprinkle in the Black person as this like political football, is what Malcolm X called it. Political football, right? It's like, I have a beef with you, but I know that either your fear of this minority, your potential racism, your whatever you have, I can use this to evoke some type of emotion out of you, whether it's making the minority, and I don't even really like using that word, but I'm kind of basing this off how they view it, right? Making this minority figure look desolate, helpless,
Like pets, literally, like helpless little dogs, puppies.
like an accessory. Oh, well, because even this, right? I do wonder how these white supremacist lawmakers would feel if their little white daughters were raped and impregnated by Black men. Even at, even talking about abortion, she should have known better, because it is very much so been a thing to paint the Black man as ruthless, as uncontrollable, as monsters, as ruled by his sexual urges. And I'm going to use that, what I possibly believe, because if not, why not just say men? Why not just say
Exactly. Why she had to use Black men as an
women
example?
impregnated by men, right? Why use this very much historically racist trope to invoke a reaction for your end goal? For your end goal. We've seen people like historically, Susan B. Anthony was also one of these people who, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, and I try to keep these history facts in my brain, but sometimes I get people's names and figures mixed up, but if I'm not mistaken, it was Susan B. Anthony who was friends with Frederick Douglass, and she was so down for the cause. And the moment the opportunity came to roll those issues under the bus and make it up, well, I was just trying to build this coalition to kind of look friendly, but it was really about getting the things done federally that I wanted done, just to keep it real with you. You know.
What, women's rights?
Yeah. Yeah.
Women's suffrage.
And so, I mean, this is a historical thing. This is like what this woman said. This is not new. This is something that's done, and us being like not too far out. I think if I'm not mistaken, Emmett Till would be old enough to be what, like our grandfather, possibly great grandfather. So not that too far out, where you had these women that would do these false accusations against Black men. So it's just a very old stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran her off of Twitter. I mean, so but you said she came back.
She's back and she apologized, but I mean, I don't believe in cancel culture, but her apology means nothing to me. If they haven't learned by now, will they ever learn? I don't think so.
I have a problem with, like, what I've said is, and where we have to be careful is allowing our image to be used for every issue. And why I say that is because it's really easy to be used and manipulated like that, right? You don't control your own image, right? And then that starts to seep into like culture and things like that. Because we could talk about, you know, a lot of stuff, even getting down into like music, TV productions, and stuff like that. But also it's this perpetual, like, oh, Black people are so pathetic, so what was me,
helpless,
that I must speak up for them because
they need my help, they need me, they need my voice. We don't.
That's what I must do. And my position has always been be a decent freaking human being. Like, if you're a decent human, like, those things are going to be natural. You don't have to fight to be seen as some virtue signaling, down for the people. Everything that I say is some type of display or overacting this thing, right? It's just like when you see people as people and you respect people, as people, as human, deserving of their human rights, deserving of protection and liberty and all of these other things, then that's just it.
That it should be like that, but I don't think that's gonna happen. People, they're not gonna understand. They don't want to understand. They don't want to get it, and that's just the way things are.
But when you don't have that, you end up like this woman, where some of those biases kind of slip through the cracks.
Well, it came back to bite her. I don't know. Can she come back from this? I'm not sure. Well, I think she can, because she's a white woman in America.
So Stefan said Emmett Till would be 82. So yeah, old enough to be, I believe, both our grandparents.
Mm-hmm. And my grandfather's about to be 80 next year.
Yeah, my grandmother is still alive, and she's in her 80s. I don't know the exact number. I should do better about that. I should figure it out. But yeah, she's in her 80s, somewhere between, I think, like 80 to 85. So yeah, old enough to be our grandparents. So that's a very stark reality. And, you know, I think that when you always trying to use something as the gotcha moment and trying to use Black people as the like, oh, well, it's like reverse Uno. You know what I mean? It's like you trying to do this. I'm going to use what I believe to be the most vulnerable population to make this point, which is really you only doing it because it benefits you.
Yeah, that's what they do a lot. White. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna say white liberals and white conservatives. They play the same game, and it's getting pretty old at this point. Because the moment that you as a Black person uh go opposite of what they believe that a Black person is, it's the end of the world, and they're back to bashing you.
Well, I definitely agree with that. And I don't even just think that's limited. I think we've dealt with that from all type
Right.
of people that be
Yep.
like, you look this certain way, you supposed to, that's how they did me on Jubilee. Like, you look this
Mm,
certain way, you supposed to, you know, think this certain way as well. And I absolutely agree with that. As soon as you start going outside of people's talking points, they'll
yeah.
throw you under the bus. And I'm like, and I'm very glad you said that because two things stuck out to me. Uh, it was it was two different pages that I follow. One is more right leaning, and one is more left leaning. And the left leaning page, the right leaning page was so surprised that was so surprised that you had some atheists and you had people with LGBT flags in front of the Supreme Court like wanting the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And his
Mm,
page posted this and was like, oh, I can't believe it. And I'm like, why you can't believe it, right? Or you will have like I said, the left leaning page that I follow that makes it seem like every single Republican is hardline opposed to abortion. And I'm like, I'm thinking like, we've become so polarized that it's freaking mind-boggling
yeah.
for people to understand it. People are not a monolith. Like some issues we're going to agree on and some we're not, regardless of if you think we line up on this line perfectly or whatever the case may be.
Everyone is different. Everyone has a different thought process.
Everyone I don't find it surprising that you have LGBT people and atheist people thinking that this is a child, this is a baby, and we want to protect that life. I don't find it surprising.
It's human rights.
You know who finds that surprising, right? It's people that think people are monolith. You
Mm-hmm.
believe in stereotypes. You fall into biases, and then you tend to have these Republicans or conservatives who will think that they're so above the news media. They're so much smarter. They don't fall into stereotypes. They don't fall into biases. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And all of us do to some extent, right? All of us
Right.
do
We
it.
all we all do.
We all do it, but some absolutely have it, okay, worse than others. And like I said, you will have that page that says, oh, I can't believe this is hard to believe. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. I know people personally that are a part of the LGBT community that are, well, I don't really know any, I don't think I know any atheists. I'll probably have to think a little bit harder. I know people that are more like agnostic and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that who are, you know, they may think, well, this is a child at conception or whatever reasons that may be their own, right? But people have these very much so varying personalities, you know what I mean? And we've
Right.
gotten so far away from that that it's like, you just live. You just right. You just Republican. You're just Democrat. And it's like, it makes it very hard to kind of narrow down and talk about some of these issues, because even for people that are more nuanced, it kind of doesn't matter in this modern day culture. You just get thrown under whichever label.
It gets exhausting. But that's the world we live in now. Like I've honestly gotten used to it. I'm used to the backlash. I'm used to people who are so polarized coming against me because that's just my life. Is it your life too?
Um, I have my moments. I don't know if I've gotten used to it yet, or I don't know if I just have my moments. You know what I mean? I feel like I've been pulling, like at some points I pull back from social media a little bit, just because sometimes I just don't want to be in the mix. I just don't. It's a lot of energy that goes into this. It's a lot of energy that goes into being a influence, being a commentator. It's a lot of, it can be very emotionally taxing, and sometimes it's just like, it's draining.
I agree.
And you need a break, because you're like giving your energy, your thoughts, your personal beliefs to people, to the world, for a lot of times for you to be attacked for it.
And
And
for
so,
you to be misunderstood.
yeah.
And honestly, it's sometimes I feel like people don't deserve my opinion. They don't deserve to hear me speak the truth because they're gonna oppose it anyways. But I'm like, hey, I'm still gonna say it anyways. Those who want to hear it are gonna hear it. What do they say? The girls that get it, get it. The girls that don't.
And I will say this, we can't forget that you and I, we both absolutely have a lot of supporters.
Yes.
We have people that agree with us. We have people that haven't found us yet and are looking for voices like ours. We have people that don't necessarily agree with us, but tolerate us, are willing to listen to us, and are open to other opinions. You know what I mean? So we're not gonna let those other people win. And the thing is, they want us to shut up. They want to censor us. They want it to make it seem like all Black women think the same, all whatever type of people, whatever type of demographic, whatever type of age group, whatever type of, it may even be hair color. You know what I mean? People were trying to tell me, oh, you think a certain way because your hair red. You know, so you like literally.
Oh wow, they're pressed it because you're red.
You got a nose ring, you got red hair. I'm not listening to anything you say because I already know what you think.
That's
So
wild.
yes, absolutely. So, you know, I will never take for granted the people that we are able to influence. And even if some people are just not going to agree with you, and that's the beautiful thing about, I would say America, we ain't out here in freaking concentration camps because of our religion or whatever the case may be. But some people are not going to agree with you. They're just not. And you have
That's
to.
what comes with freedom of speech.
That's what comes with it. That's very much different from telling people to go kill themselves, which is completely irrational and acceptable. But yeah, and so there are people out there, and we can't forget. And sometimes you have so many people that agree with us, but they don't have the guts. They don't have the nerve. They don't, for lack of better terms, they don't have the balls. I mean, not to
They don't.
gender
Let's just be
specific
honest.
or gender neutral or whatever you want to call it.
Don't women say balls too? Don't women use that too concerning themselves sometimes? You know how they saying it in music.
You know what I mean? Like you said, the girls that get it, and the ones that don't. So everybody can't stand on their own too. Some people need a crowd. Some people need to constantly have people backing them up. Some people can't speak out about what they think, believe, feel, whatever the case may be. So let's not even pretend like everybody that's not speaking even agrees. You know what I mean? Some people too. I have people telling me, I can't believe you would say that. Like, Why not? They be saying what they want. Why I gotta not say what I want?
Or they'll say it in private. They don't have the guts to say it in public. They'll say it in private in their little group chats, group me or Telegram or
And,
I message.
and then particularly, it'd be so funny coming from the quote unquote pro-black people that be like, "Oh,
For
my
real.
job, I can't say it because of my job." All right, then.
This don't need to be we need more entrepreneurs. You can say what you
Like,
want. Just nobody has been able to call my job yet.
like
Sorry.
we say what we want. Like we say what we want. That's just what it is. And
Yep.
even when I was working for someone, it's like they knew what type of spirit I was, what type of time it was. Like they knew. So, you know, it is what it is. And some of us do not walk in fear. We caution is okay. Safety, we're not walking in fear. I mean, that's just is what it is. So, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up, or want to tell people where they can find you?
Well, I would just say, yeah, you guys can find me again on Instagram, Sharice Lane, 2 R's, 1 S. Okay. Instagram, Sharice Lane, Twitter, Sharice J Lane, TikTok, Sharice Lane, and go subscribe to my YouTube. I am doing a live. I will have Rhonda and also Olivia on my I don't know if you guys know Olivia Rondo, but I'll have both of them on my YouTube tomorrow night. So please go subscribe to my YouTube at Sharice Lane, and thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thank you for having me.
All right, and thank you to Stefan Moultrie for the $10 super chat. He said melanin popping tonight. You see it, you see it. No, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for everybody that joined with us and dropping y'all thoughts in the chat. Thank you to Sharice for joining us. If you would like to support this channel, go ahead over to RhondaMary.com. It has the different ways that you can support this channel. You can share, you can give a thumbs up, you can even go over there on RhondaMary.com and purchase merch. Also, go ahead and get on my mailing list at RhondaMary.com as well. And a special shout out to my long-term supporters and new supporters too. I gotta give y'all some love. And thank y'all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Join us tomorrow on Sharice's channel. I have her tagged in the title, so you can't miss it. All right, y'all. Have a good night. Bye.